This is the Rookie Big Board. I'm your host, Matt Higgs, the F-Educator, here with John Live, the Gridiron Scholar. And we are back at it for another big week of waiver wire targets. We have another 5 great picks for you this week. But before we jump into this upcoming week, want to take a quick look back on our week 1 hits because we did pretty well here. For all of our viewers, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Give the video a like so we can keep bringing you top tier content here. Nick Nash, the cover player of last week's video, another 22 fantasy points. The targets are rolling in. Nick Nash is clearly the guy in the San Jose State offense. We featured him on our video last week, as well as John talked up Cincinnati quarterback Brendan Sorsby, nearly 30 fantasy points. He was in a shootout. It's clear that Cincinnati offense is going to be throwing the ball, and Sorsby's finding a way to get fantasy points on the ground as well. Speaking of which, if you are a Rookie Big Board patron, you would be able to have read the Sleepers article on our website that John puts together weekly, and you would have been able to add Delan Cobb, who had nearly 30 fantasy points and looked much better to the eye. He played very well against Oklahoma State. A couple interceptions held him back from a 35-point game. And then wide receiver Kevin Coleman, who was on nearly nobody's radar. Mississippi State didn't have a big game in that week 1 in terms of big game matchups, so not a lot of eyes on it, but John correctly identified Kevin Coleman as a sleeper for this week, and he put up 21.2 fantasy points. So that was a look ahead, look behind, I should say, to last week. As we're going through this video, if you have any start-sit questions, any questions about the guys that we're talking about, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'd love to answer those as well. But John, with all that being said, let's talk about the guy from week 2 of the college football season, rostered in just 30% of leagues, Caleb Johnson out of Iowa.
I think he's going to be the biggest decision. If you're first in the waiver wire, grab him. If you have some fab, you have to make a decision how much you're going to bid on Caleb Johnson. Matt, we've talked about being a year ahead on players when we do our Devy shows and our college shows. Looking back now, I feel like I was a year ahead on Caleb Johnson of Iowa. His freshman year, he had 774 yards rushing. And last summer, I drafted him like crazy, Matt. But he was so bad. I cut him on my teams. He was sitting there on the best ball, getting me 0 or 3 points, like destroyed me. So I didn't rank. I think I had him outside the top 60 heading into the season. Wasn't excited about the Hawkeyes offense, right? He's available in 30% of leagues. Also, what was Kirk LaFrentz doing, dude? He benched him opening week, which threw a monkey wrench in the entire thing. But he had 100 yards coming off the bench week 1. I ignored it. Man, he was awesome against Iowa State. He is now the number 7 running back in CFF, back-to-back 100-yard games, 306 yards rushing. Matt, he's the man. Go get him for Iowa.
Yeah, lead back in the Iowa offense. He looks explosive, right? It's not just a volume-based situation here. He's getting volume, but he's looking explosive with it. I got to be honest, John. I'm gonna get aggressive with Caleb Johnson. Like, I'm gonna spend up on the fab. I'm a big proponent in spend early, right, and spend up. And I'm willing to go 50, 60% of remaining fab budget on this guy. I think he's a locked in waiver wire target. He's probably going to be rostered in 98% of leagues next week. So it's now or never on the Iowa running back. But let's head to upstate New York because the Syracuse offense is humming, man, with Kyle McCord. I mean, first and foremost, look on your waiver wire to see if Kyle McCord is there. But we're not talking about him. We're talking about Trevor Pena, and I want to talk about Pena because Gadsden is rightfully so getting a lot of the credit, but the wide receiver here for Syracuse, rostered in just 27% of leagues, has really gotten my attention. And when I'm looking at the waiver wire early in the season, John, what I'm looking for are targets, right? Who's the priority in the offense? Who's the priority for the quarterback? And Pena clearly has 7 targets in each of his first 2 games. And he's got 2 receiving touchdowns in each of those games as well. So 4 touchdowns for the first 2 weeks. all right, week 1 they play Ohio, but week 2 they played a Georgia Tech team that shut out Florida State. So clearly not a total scrub defense. And here's what I like about Pena. I think you're going to get what I call a discount bid opportunity, right? He's got a week 3 bye. And so those who are scouring the waiver wire for somebody to fill into a roster hole this week are totally going to bypass him. So I think you can put in a low bid and you're going to get good value on him, because starting week 4, he gets Stanford, Holy Cross, UNLV. All right. Great academics from those schools, not great defenses. I think that the Syracuse wide receivers absolutely worth taking that discount, put them on the bench for a week here. But let's head south, John, and let's head to Georgia Southern.
We are chasing targets, and we love coaches like Clay Helton, who has had a system for a prolonged amount of time. And we know in that system, in Clay Helton's system, he's going to use the slot receiver. Delan Cobb is playing in the slot for the Eagles. He has acquired 15 targets in the first 2 games of the year. Matt, in the first week, he only caught 4 of 8, but he did have 55 yards and a touchdown. Last week against Nevada, he came out 7 for 7, targets to receptions. He had 81 yards and another touchdown. So you're looking at a young man with 15 targets and 11 receptions with 2 scores early in the season. What do I like even more? Next, South Carolina State. They do have a tough game against Mississippi, but then you go into the Sun Belt Conference. Delan Cobb is a must-acquire slot receiver for your college fantasy football.
Cobb is a must-add to your fantasy football teams, just like the rookie big board is a must-add to your fantasy football resources. Head on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard to get premium access here. You can see the CFF Sleepers article weekly that I was talking about earlier. You can get access to the Devy rankings, the 2025 rookie class rankings, both of which have just been updated today. The dynasty rankings get personalized start, sit advice for your college or NFL team in the Rookie Big Board Discord, and so much more over at patreon.com/Rookie Big Board. All right, let's talk tight ends. It's a tough position here. So I want to talk about Gunnar Helm. He's rostered in just 5% of leagues, and I think he's a priority for me. John, I got to be honest with you. There's some leagues this year where I didn't get the tight end early, and I just punted the position. And scouring the waiver wire last week, if you didn't get Beck, it was tough pickings here. But I think with Gunnar Helm, we have a real nice lead at the tight end position. Against Michigan, he caught all 7 of his targets, including a touchdown. He had 98 yards. Now, that's encouraging for me, John. He did go just 2 receptions for 42 yards, which is a great average week 1 against Colorado State. But I think Texas was rolling out vanilla week 1. I think week 2 against Michigan, they've tipped what they're looking to do in their offense. Gunnar Helm gives this team something that you don't get in Isaiah Bond, that you don't get in Matthew Golden, right? Like, those are 2 fantastic receivers. But when you get into the red zone, Quinn Ewers is looking Gunnar Helm's way. He's averaging 15.5 yards per reception, and a real nice lineup coming up here for the Longhorns. You got UTSA, you got UL Monroe, and Mississippi State. Like, Quinn Ewers, the Texas offense, man, they're going to be cooking. And there is volume to go around here for Gunnar Helm. So at just 5% rostership, valuable tight ends go quick. I'm willing to put 15, 20% of my waiver wire bid in on him if I need a tight end specifically. But John, take us home. We've talked about running back, wide receiver, tight end. Let's finish it off here with a quarterback.
I'll tell you who's cooking, Matt. Anthony Kandra of Virginia. Last year, when I was scouting Malik Washington, he was such a CFF stud. I did watch games with Anthony Kandra behind center. But what happened over the summer and over the winter, Coach Tony Elliott would not make Kandra the clear starter. And I don't think he named the starter until just before kickoff. And I like Malachi Fields. We talked about him over the summer. So if you like the big receiver, someone's got to throw him the ball. Matt, What took so long? What were you thinking, Coach Elliott? Anthony Kandra is an exciting player. He has scored 34 fantasy points in back-to-back weeks, 297 and 357 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. He can scoot with his legs. He has 72 rushing yards and a touchdown. Matt, the Cavaliers are in the ACC. I don't think there's a dominant team yet. We'll see. Virginia should be competitive throughout the season. And the next 2 weeks, Matt, Maryland at home and Coastal Carolina on the road. Give me Anthony Kandra because he's cooking up a stew.
All right, there you have it. 5 priority waiver wire picks to help you out in week 3 of the college football season. If you have other start-sit questions, waiver questions, roster questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll be answering them all week long. Make sure you're subscribed to the Rookie Big Board on YouTube, and make sure you're heading on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard to elevate your CFF insight. Thanks for checking out this episode.